Welcome to your custom deep dive. Looks like we've got a pretty hefty stack of gaming transcripts and character descriptions here.
Oh yeah, someone's getting ready for a big campaign or maybe even like building out a whole world for an adventure.
And whatever your game is, we're here to dig in and see what we can find.
Yeah, unearth those hidden gems, right?
Yeah.
And I have to say, the thing that really jumped out at me right away was just how visually rich these descriptions are.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got the tavern transforming into a nightclub, the super specific details about how everyone looks. It's like almost like watching a movie play out in your head.
Definitely feels immersive.
Yeah, totally designed for immersion.
So before we get too lost in the plot twists and turns,
Right.
let's meet some of these key players.
Okay, love it.
You've shared info on 4-player characters,
Okay.
several NPCs.
All right, let's start with the PCs, the heart of the campaign.
Perfect.
You've got like a classic mix, Roland Wildheart, Wood Elf Ranger, described as quiet and watchful.
Classic.
Then there's Waiwu, a halfling druid in training,
Okay.
sporting this awesome feathered headdress,
Oh, I love it.
and then skull necklaces.
Wait, those skull necklaces really caught my eye too?
Yeah.
It's a bold choice for a druid, a class that's usually all about, like, preserving life.
Right.
So could this be a hint that maybe Wawu's got some internal conflict brewing?
Oh, for sure.
Ugh.
I mean, do those necklaces symbolize like a reverence for death or a connection to ancestor spirits, maybe?
Yeah,
It's something that could clash with, like you said, that traditional druidic role.
totally. It's a fascinating contradiction for sure.
Yeah, and ripe for some really cool character development.
I'm already picturing those internal struggles playing out.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so moving on to the next PC, we've got Bagel.
Okay.
He's a dark elf
I
barbarian.
love it.
And his backstory,
Ooh.
it's steeped in tragedy.
Oh, no.
A dragon attack wiped out his family and his farm.
Classic fuel for some serious rage.
Right. It's that classic, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger,
Oh, yeah.
but with like a dark fantasy twist. And the big question is, how's Basil going to channel that rage?
Right. Is he going to be out for revenge against all dragons, or will he be dedicated to, like, protecting others from suffering the same fate?
Yeah, it's a backstory that's just brimming with possibilities.
It is.
And it adds so much depth to a character who could so easily just fall into that angry barbarian stereotype.
Oh, totally.
Okay, and then the last PC.
Okay.
This is the one I'm most curious about.
It-
It's Yerfog,
Yerfog.
a wood elf with no last name,
Interesting.
wants to be unnoticed.
Okay.
Described as intentionally nondescript, wanting to blend into the background.
Okay, so that lack of a last name,
Yeah,
that immediately hit me is significant.
same.
Is this suggesting they're an outcast? Have they, like, deliberately shed their family name?
Yeah,
Are they running from something in their past, trying to forge a whole new identity?
right. It's a blank slate that's just begging for the player to fill it in.
Oh.
It's like they're embracing that stealth master archetype, but with like a layer of mystery that goes way beyond just hiding in the shadows.
I love it.
And speaking of mystery,
Oh.
let's move on to the NPCs.
Okay, let's do it.
Starting with the man who seems to be at the center of it all,
Okay.
Roger.
Roger.
Wealthy, influential, and sporting a rather ostentatious dragon ring.
Ooh, that ring, that's a statement piece for sure.
It is.
But, it's a red dragon,
Uh-huh.
and we know those are often associated with greed power,
Mhm.
sometimes even tyranny in fantasy lore. So it makes you wonder if Roger's wealth maybe came at a cost.
Yeah. What do you think? Is he using his influence for good, or are there some darker forces at play?
Good question.
And then there's his daughter, Sybil,
Okay.
the aspiring cleric of the
Uh,
Temple of Saloon.
Temple of Saloon?
I have to admit, that name alone is throwing me for a loop.
I know, right? What is going on there?
Is this a real religious institution,
Yeah.
or is there something more to it?
Is saloon like a slang term in this world? Or is this temple just known for having super unconventional practices? Maybe it's dedicated to a god of revelry or indulgence.
I'm picturing like a temple full of boisterous worshippers,
Oh, yeah.
maybe even a few tipsy clerics.
That's amazing.
Okay, and let's not forget Steve,
See?
the seemingly ordinary dwarf tavern owner,
Right.
who also happens to be involved in some shady dealings.
Oh, Steve, what's interesting about Steve is he seems caught between two worlds.
Right.
Like the legitimate business of running his tavern
Mm-hmm.
and this criminal underworld of the guild.
Yeah. Do you think he's been forced into this situation, or is he, like, playing both sides for his own personal gain?
That's a great question.
And speaking of the guild, we get some pretty interesting hints about their operation.
Oh, yeah?
Like those gold rings with the red dragon symbols.
Mm,
Seems like there could be a connection back to Roger.
right. More than just a visual motif.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. It hints at this potential link between Roger's wealth and what the guild is up to.
Uh-huh.
Maybe he's a former member, or maybe he's using the guild to get what he wants.
Right. It's a dangerous association for sure.
It adds another layer of intrigue.
It seems like everyone in this world is carrying secrets.
Right.
And then there's Aurora,
Okay.
a woman who runs into the party after being captured by goblins.
Oh, no.
She begs them to help her rescue her daughter.
Classic damsel in distress.
Right. But I feel like there's got to be more to her story.
I think so, too.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that she's actively seeking help and she's so clearly concerned for her daughter,
Yeah.
it suggests she's more than just a victim.
Uh-huh.
I mean, she could easily become a recurring character,
Totally.
maybe even an ally.
Yeah. I'm very curious to see how her story unfolds.
Me too.
Okay, so now that we've met the players,
Right.
let's jump into the plot.
Yes.
The story kicks off in classic RPG fashion.
Okay, I love it.
The party finds themselves in a tavern looking for work,
Uh-huh.
and they encounter none other than Roger.
Of course they do.
And that tavern, the Rusty Mug,
The rusty mug.
the description is so vivid.
Yeah.
Hazy smoke from pipes, flickering oil lamps, casting those long shadows, rough-hewn tables.
Oh, I love it.
You can practically smell the ale and hear the murmur of conversations.
It's a classic setting.
Oh, yeah, it's the quintessential adventurer's hangout.
Totally.
And of course, Roger strolls in, flashing his wealth and offering the party a job.
Okay, what's the job?
Escort his daughter Sybil to the capital city.
Oh.
But here's where things get interesting.
Okay.
Roger is incredibly vague about the dangers of the road,
Oh.
downplaying the risks,
Uh-huh.
but at the same time hiring a group of seasoned adventurers.
So he's not being entirely truthful.
Nope.
It makes you wonder what he's really afraid of.
Right. He's sending them into something he knows is dangerous, but not giving them the full picture.
So many questions.
What do you think? Is he holding back information to protect his daughter, or is she bait for some bigger plan?
Ooh, that's a good one.
It definitely sets up that sense of intrigue and suspicion right from the start.
It does.
That evening, the tavern undergoes a dramatic transformation.
What happens?
It goes from a cozy pub into a pulsating nightclub.
Okay, so we're shifting from like a low-key hangout
Yeah,
to something a little more high energy.
totally. And it's like the sensory detail that shows there's this whole other side to this world.
Right, this undercurrent of excitement, danger, and intrigue.
Yeah, it's like the tavern itself has a secret identity.
I love that.
And during this transformation,
Uh-huh.
Yearfog, with those keen observation skills,
Right.
spots Steve meeting with members of the guild.
Oh, no.
They overhear snippets of conversation about a shipment arriving that night.
Interesting.
It hints at what the guild is really up to.
So this is where we start to see the guild as a potential antagonist.
Yeah,
And the stakes get higher for the party.
totally.
They're not just escorting Sybil anymore.
Right.
They've stumbled into this criminal conspiracy that could have some serious consequences.
Driven by curiosity, maybe
Yeah.
a little bit of that sense of adventure, Roland decides to take matters into his own hands.
What does he do?
He sneaks into Steve's office,
Okay.
discovers a ledger detailing the guild's operations, including a shipment of opium.
Opium,
He
interesting.
even finds a pouch of the drug itself.
Whoa. Risky move for Roland.
Definitely, but it also reveals he's resourceful,
Uh-huh.
willing to bend the rules a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm starting to wonder about his motivations.
Yeah, is he genuinely concerned about what the guild's doing, or is there something else going on here?
Yeah, our quiet and observant ranger might have a hidden wild streak.
Maybe.
Later that night at the docks, Roland confronts Steve,
He does?
and he manages to get that pouch of opium,
Wow.
promising to return it later.
That whole scene was so tense.
It was.
You could tell Roland's okay with operating in like a morally gray area
Yeah.
to get what he wants.
Yeah,
But what is he going to do with that opium?
right. Is he trying to get evidence against the guild, or is he
Yeah.
thinking about using it for himself?
Oh, that adds a whole new layer of moral ambiguity to his character.
It really does make you wonder if he is as straightforward as he seems.
Yeah. So sure.
So after this encounter, the party spends the night at Roger's lavish guest house,
Right.
each carrying their own secrets and anxieties.
Ooh, The contrast between that opulence of the guest house and all that underlying tension is really striking.
It is.
It emphasizes that theme of hidden depths we keep seeing.
Yeah.
The fact that appearances can be deceiving.
Right. Even in a place of luxury, there's this feeling of unease and distrust simmering beneath the surface.
I love it.
It's like a powder keg ready to explode.
Totally.
The next morning, during breakfast, Sybil reveals her passion for the Temple of Saloon.
Okay.
She expresses this desire to find her own purpose, beyond her father's control.
I mean, this is really insightful into Sybil's character.
It is.
She's not just a spoiled rich girl.
Right.
She's got dreams and ambitions.
Yeah.
She wants to break free from her father's shadow and kind of forge her own path.
It really humanizes her.
It does.
Makes her more than just a damsel in distress.
Exactly.
As the party's getting ready to leave,
Mm-hmm.
Roger hands them a very hefty sum of gold.
Okay.
It's like a down payment.
It feels both generous and calculated.
It does, right. Like, he's trying to buy their loyalty, make sure they put his daughter's safety above everything else.
Yeah, but does he trust them? Or is he trying to control them with his wealth?
Good question. And with that, the party sets off on their journey.
Right.
Waiwu and Roland sharing a horse.
Oh, interesting.
It's a small detail,
Uh-huh.
but it says a lot about their dynamic.
What do you think it means?
Maybe Waiwu just needs the help because of his size.
Could be.
Or maybe it's a sign that their barn is growing.
Yeah.
A practical solution, but also suggesting trust and camaraderie.
I like that.
And as they ride, Sybil confides in Yearfog,
Okay.
revealing her desire to escape her father's control and, find her own way.
It's that theme of freedom and the challenges of breaking free from societal expectations. Sybil's longing for independence is something that a lot of people listening can relate to.
Definitely, especially those who felt that pressure to conform to their family's wishes.
For sure.
It's a universal theme.
It is.
And amidst all the seriousness, we get this glimpse of Waiwu's infectious enthusiasm.
Oh, Waiwu.
Right? He challenges Sybil to a race,
He does.
just like momentarily lifting her spirits.
Waiwu is such a great counterpoint to the more serious parts of this story.
Oh, yeah.
He's a reminder that even when things are dangerous and uncertain,
Uh-huh.
there's still room for joy and laughter.
He's like a breath of fresh air.
He brings levity to the journey.
But as they ride, Roland's ranger senses start to tingle.
Oh.
There's a threat nearby.
So classic, You could feel something's about to happen,
Oh, yeah.
but we don't know what
It-
or when.
Keeps us on the edge of our seats.
Totally.
And as we all know, in a world like this, danger is never too far away.
Never.
And sure enough, they're ambushed by goblins.
Classic.
The ambush itself is described in such vivid detail.
Tell me.
The goblins' grotesque appearances,
Uh-huh.
crude weapons, the suddenness of the attack.
It's chaotic.
Oh, yeah.
Terrifying.
It's a reminder that even in a world with talking rabbits
Right.
and temples devoted to saloons,
Yes.
there's still some real danger.
Absolutely. It grounds everything in a sense of realism, even with all those fantastical elements.
So how does the party handle this sudden attack?
Fill me in.
Well, Waiwu tries to intimidate the goblins,
Oh.
shouting in his heavily accented halfling language.
I bet that was something.
It's more comical than threatening.
Oh, Waiwu. He seems like the kind of character who's more likely to befriend a monster than intimidate it.
Right. It's that little moment of comic relief that lightens the tension of the battle.
Totally.
It shows Waiwu's personality, brave, well-intentioned,
Yeah.
but maybe not as intimidating as he wants to be.
I love it.
But while Waiwu's attempts at intimidation are failing,
Right.
Yearfog, ever the quick thinker,
Yeah.
takes down the lead goblin with a perfectly placed arrow. It really showcases Yearfog's skill as an archer,
It does.
their ability to stay calm in a crisis,
Uh-huh.
reinforces that role as the protector of the group.
Even though they prefer to stay in the shadows.
Yeah. Proving that actions speak louder than words, especially when those actions are well-aimed arrows.
Nice.
Now, how does Basil react to this?
Tell me.
As you might expect,
Yeah,
Basil charges into the fight,
of course.
hacking and slashing his way through those goblin ranks.
Love it.
His fighting style is described as brutal and efficient,
Oh.
like a force of nature,
Oh, yeah.
driven by that rage and that thirst for vengeance.
It's such a stark contrast to Yearfog's more calculated approach.
Right. It's the classic berserker versus the sniper.
Totally.
And what about Waiwu? Does he manage to redeem himself after that failed intimidation attempt?
I hope so.
He does.
Yes.
After that initial stumble,
Okay.
he proves to be a surprisingly capable fighter,
Good for him.
wielding his druidic powers
Uh-huh.
and his
Right.
weapon with equal skill.
So he's not just a healer and a nature lover.
Nope.
He can handle himself.
He can.
It makes him a more well-rounded and interesting character.
Definitely full of surprises.
Yes.
But just as the tide seems to be turning in the party's favor, disaster strikes.
Uh-oh, what happened?
Sybil's hit by a poisoned arrow.
Oh, no.
This reminds us that even the most skilled adventurers are vulnerable.
Right.
It also raises the stakes.
Yeah.
They're not just fighting for their own lives anymore. They're fighting to protect Sybil from a potentially deadly poison.
It's that classic ticking clock scenario.
Totally injects that sense of urgency into the fight.
So how do they react?
Waiwu, enraged by Sybil's injury, unleashes his fury on the goblin archer.
Oh, wow.
Takes him out with a single blow.
I guess that paternal instinct kicked in.
It did?
He's not going to let anyone hurt her.
Nope.
It's a really powerful moment that showcases his protectiveness and his loyalty to his companions.
It also suggests he's not as passive as he might appear. Beneath that cheerful exterior, there's a core of steel.
I love that.
He's a complex character for sure.
He is.
So with Sybil injured and the party facing a new threat, how does the battle end?
Help me.
The remaining goblins, demoralized and outnumbered, flee into the forest.
So a tactical retreat?
Exactly.
They knew when to fight and when to run.
Yeah. It also hints that maybe there's a bigger, more organized threat.
Right. Lurking in the shadows.
It's a classic setup for a larger conflict.
It is.
So the goblins have fled, but Sybil's hurt.
Yeah.
What happens next?
What happens next?
As the party tends to Sybil's wounds,
Okay.
a woman comes out of the trees begging for their help.
Okay.
Her name's Aurora,
Aurora.
and she was captured by the goblins, and
Yeah.
they took her daughter too. It seems like our heroes just can't catch a break.
I know, right?
But this introduction of Aurora adds another layer.
Yeah, it gives them a more personal stake.
Right.
They're not just fighting random goblins anymore.
They're fighting to reunite a mother and child.
That classic hero's journey, you know. The call to adventure sets them on a path to help those in need.
Totally.
So how do they respond?
Determined to help, they head into the forest.
Huh?
Following a rather unusual guide,
Mm-hmm.
Waiwu, using his druidic magic, enlists the help of a rabbit to track the goblins.
A rabbit, okay, I mean, it's unconventional,
It is.
but it really shows off that unique connection he has to nature.
Right. I'm picturing a scene straight out of a Disney movie.
I love it.
Waiwu, like, talking to the woodland creatures to find that missing girl.
It adds a nice little bit of whimsy to the story.
It does.
But it also shows how versatile the druid class is.
Right.
They're not just healers. They can talk to animals. They can use the power of nature.
So where does this rabbit lead them?
Where does it take them?
To the goblin encampment.
Okay.
And there they find
Oh, wait.
a large group of goblins
Huh.
and a captive troll.
A troll. Now that's a twist.
It is.
What are the goblins doing with a troll?
That's a great question.
It really suggests there's something bigger going on here
Right.
than just some simple goblin raids.
Yeah, maybe the goblins are working for someone else, someone who wants to use that troll for their own evil plans.
Exciting.
It raises those stakes, creates a whole new mystery.
Definitely, we'll have to dive into that in part 2 of this deep dive.
We will, but before we go, let's do a quick recap.
Okay, let's summarize.
We've met a really diverse cast of characters.
Yes.
Heroic and villainous,
Uh-huh.
each with their own motivations and secrets.
Right.
We've seen a world that's both familiar and strange.
Yeah,
Classic fantasy tropes and unexpected twists.
totally.
And we've seen this party embark on a very dangerous journey.
Yeah.
They're facing real danger, making choices that'll have lasting consequences.
I can't wait to see what happens next.
And we've only just started to scratch the surface of this world.
I know.
Join us in part 2 as we delve deeper into that goblin encampment, confront the troll, and uncover the secrets that are hiding at the heart of this adventure.
I'll be here. Yeah. So we left off with our adventurers facing a bit of a dilemma. You know, a captive troll held by a band of goblins.
It's not your everyday encounter, that's for sure.
Even in a world as unusual as this one.
Right. It's like they wandered onto the set of a monster movie.
But instead of like running for the hills, they're figuring out what to do with this massive creature.
And they're still trying to rescue Aurora's daughter.
Oh yeah, she's still back there somewhere.
Talk about a high-pressure situation.
So how do they decide to move forward?
Yeah. Do they try to reason with the troll?
Maybe?
Do they fight their way through the goblins to get to the girl?
Well, they go with a strategic approach.
Okay.
They decide to prioritize the rescue.
Right.
You know, get the daughter out of there first.
Okay.
Knowing that the troll, at least for now, is contained.
Right.
They find her hiding in a hut, Scared, but safe.
That's got to be a huge relief for Aurora.
I bet.
And for the party, too. I mean, it's a small victory, but a big one in all this chaos.
It really is a reminder that even in those darkest moments, there's still hope and compassion.
Yeah, it's got to strengthen that bond between them and Aurora, too.
It does forges this connection through a shared experience.
It's classic hero's journey stuff.
Yeah.
The act of rescuing someone reinforces that commitment to the quest.
Absolutely.
But they're not out of the woods yet.
Literally and figuratively.
Right, they still have that troll to deal with.
They do. And this is where the world building gets so interesting.
Okay, tell me.
It turns out this troll isn't just some dumb brute.
Okay.
He's terrified of fire.
A weakness.
A vulnerability they could totally exploit.
It's like that classic monster movie trope, you know?
Uh-huh.
The creature's greatest fear is something super simple like fire.
Totally plays on those primal fears, but it also opens the door to some clever problem solving.
Yeah.
It's a really nice touch. Adding that complexity to what could have been just a straightforward monster fight.
So do they set the troll on fire?
I mean,
Or is there a more creative solution?
they decide to leave him tied up for the time being.
Okay.
But knowing they can use that fear to their advantage if they need to?
It's a calculated risk, for sure.
It is, but they've got other things to worry about.
Right, like that whole conspiracy we talked about.
Yeah.
The goblins, the Guild Rogers' shady behavior.
Yeah.
It all feels connected somehow.
And this is where the next detail becomes crucial.
Oh, okay.
While they're searching the encampment, they find a message.
Okay.
It's written in Goblinish.
Hold on, goblinish.
Yeah.
Can they even read that?
Well, it's not stated outright,
Uh-huh.
but it really seems like Roland understands at least some of it.
Interesting. So maybe this is a unique skill he has.
Could be.
Maybe tied to his ranger background, or
Yeah.
maybe he's just got a knack for languages.
Could be a common ranger skill in this world.
Either way, it adds so much to his character.
It does.
Hints at this backstory we haven't uncovered yet.
Yeah, maybe he's tangled with goblins before or studied their culture.
I love it.
So what does this message say?
It basically outlines plans for another group to meet up with the goblins.
And they're not freaking out.
Nope. Instead of panicking, they use it to their advantage.
What do?
They plan an ambush.
This is where we see that strategic thinking and teamwork in action.
Totally. Roland and Basil, with all their combat experience,
Right.
they're ready to strike from the shadows.
Huh?
Waiwu uses his druid magic to camouflage the campsite.
Nice. Blending it into the forest.
And your Fog, always watching out for everyone,
Yep.
stays back with Aurora and her daughter to keep them safe.
It's like that classic war movie scene,
Yeah.
Every member of the squad using their skills to pull off this coordinated attack.
And it works.
They totally surprised the second group. The details of the fight are left to our imagination.
Right.
But the fact that they pull it off speaks volumes about their abilities.
Yeah, they're planning. And maybe a little luck, too.
Maybe
It's a well-deserved win for our heroes.
especially after everything they've been through.
But then they make a discovery.
Oh, what is it?
Among the stuff from the attackers,
Uh-huh.
they find a ton of loot.
Quite.
Gold weapons, even a chipped tooth from a wolf.
A wolf tooth. That's interesting.
It's like a trophy or a talisman or something.
It is, right. That loot is more than just a reward.
Yeah.
It's a clue, a piece of the puzzle.
Who were these guys?
Yeah.
What were they doing with all that treasure?
It feels like there's a bigger network at play here.
Right. The party stumbled onto something way more complicated than they thought.
It's like peeling back the layers of an onion.
Okay.
More questions with every layer.
And what about the troll we left him tied up back at the encampment?
Oh yeah, Chekhov's troll. He's got to come back into play somehow.
Right. It's like a ticking time bomb.
Totally.
Maybe he breaks free and causes chaos.
Could be.
Or maybe they have to use his fear of fire to escape something dangerous.
Maybe they even find a way to communicate with him,
Oh, that'd be interesting.
turning a potential enemy into an unlikely ally.
The possibilities are endless.
They are. And that's what makes this world so exciting.
Yeah.
It's full of surprises, unexpected twists and characters that are constantly defying expectations.
It reminds us that even in a world with these fantastical elements, there are still real stakes and consequences.
Absolutely.
So before we wrap up part 2,
Yeah.
let's think about what we've learned.
Okay.
The parties faced off with goblins, rescued a child, and uncovered a conspiracy that goes way deeper than they ever imagined.
They have.
We've seen heroism, compassion, and even some humor along the way.
Right. Even in the middle of all the danger.
And we've learned that even the smallest detail,
What kind of detail?
like A skull necklace, a wolf's tooth, a troll's fear of fire
No.
can have a big impact on the story.
For sure.
It's a masterclass in world building,
It is.
showing how every little piece can contribute to something bigger.
I have a feeling we're just getting started.
I think you're right. Okay,
Yeah.
so we're back for the final act of this deep dive.
Let's do it.
We left off with our heroes victorious after that ambush, but with a mountain of new questions.
Yeah. Who are those attackers?
Yeah.
What were they doing with all that loot?
And how does it all connect back to Roger and his, seemingly simple request?
It's like we're at that point in a mystery novel where everything starts to come together.
Totally.
And that treasure trove they found.
Yeah,
It's full of clues.
right. Like that chipped wolf's tooth.
Yeah.
That's not your average bandit loot.
No, it's not.
It feels almost ritualistic, maybe, connected to like a certain group or belief system.
Totally. It's screaming symbolism.
Yeah.
And remember that message they found written in Goblin-ish?
Uh-huh.
We were talking about how maybe Roland's got a secret talent for languages.
Right.
Well, this could be where that knowledge really comes in handy.
How so?
Maybe he can decipher more than just the meeting place.
Yeah.
Maybe he can figure out the attackers' motivations, their hierarchy, their goals.
So he's like the code breaker in a heist movie,
Exactly.
unlocking a whole new level of understanding.
Right. It all comes down to the players and the game master now.
Yeah.
Will they follow that thread, investigate the wolf's tooth, really dig into that goblin-ish language?
It's a good reminder that a well-crafted game world is more than just a setting.
It is.
It's like a web of interconnected details.
Yeah,
And each one can make the story richer.
absolutely. And
Mm-hmm.
speaking of enriching the story, let's not forget about our friend the troll.
Oh, right. Chekhov's troll. We know he's coming back.
The question is how?
Will he be a force of destruction breaking free and wreaking havoc?
Maybe.
Or will he become a reluctant ally? Maybe manipulated by their knowledge of his fear of fire.
Or what if the troll's captivity is connected to the whole conspiracy?
Ooh, interesting.
Maybe those attackers were planning to use him.
For some evil scheme.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or maybe the fact that he's even in this region points to a deeper imbalance.
Okay.
Something the party has to fix to restore harmony.
It's like even the monsters have their own story to tell.
They do.
So what are your overall impressions of this world and this adventure?
I think it's a really cool blend of those classic fantasy tropes with fresh new elements.
Like what?
You've got your elves, your dwarves, your goblins,
Yeah.
but then you throw in a Temple of Saloon, a troll who's afraid of fire, and a wood elf who might be a secret linguist.
Right. It's familiar, but also surprising.
It keeps you on your toes.
Keeps you guessing.
And even the characters we've only gotten glimpses of, they feel complex.
They do.
They're not just filling roles.
Mm-hmm.
They've got their own quirks and motivations and secrets.
Totally.
You've got Wei Wu, the happy-go-lucky druid who's fiercely protective.
Uh-huh.
Your Fog, the quiet observer who could be hiding something.
And Roger himself, even he's wrapped in mystery.
It makes you want to dig deeper, see what's underneath.
And that big question that's hanging over everything,
What's that?
is Roger really just worried about his daughter?
Yeah.
Or is there something else going on?
Is he a good guy, a bad guy, or somewhere in between?
That's what I love about this story.
Yeah.
It doesn't give you easy answers.
It makes you think.
It encourages you to imagine the possibilities, to look at it from different angles and come to your own conclusions.
You're part of the story.
Exactly.
You get to decide what happens next.
It's a reminder that the best stories are often the ones that defy our expectations and keep us guessing until the very end.
Absolutely.
And for our listeners who are diving into this world as players or game masters,
Yeah?
I think the takeaway is this.
What is it?
Pay attention to the details.
Okay.
Those little things, those hints and whispers the creator has woven into this world.
It might be important.
They might just hold the key to the best story you've ever told.
Embrace the unexpected. Explore those uncharted territories. And remember, the best adventures are often the ones we least expect.
Well said. That about wraps it up for this deep dive.
Until next time.